There's been moments in my life where things have happened and I'm just like staring down the abyss that I feel is the 9 to 5, and then looking at the difficulties that come with being an entrepreneur. And I'm just like, it doesn't matter how high this side is stacked. I will always choose this because, like, that to me is just like death for my spirit.
Have you ever wondered what it would be like if you followed your passion, really went all in? That's exactly what we explore here on The Purpose Project. I sit down with people who are doing what lights them up, entrepreneurs, creatives, mystics, dreamers, and we talk about the real journey, the ebbs, the flows, and what it takes to live your purpose. So if you're ready to be inspired, let's dive in.
Hello and welcome. My name is Cyndal Wallace and I am your host today for The Purpose Project. And today I'm here with Rowan.
Hello.
And Rowan is passionate about so many different things. So I'm so excited to have you here because you are just a whole box of passion. So I love
Thank
this.
you. Thank
You're
you.
also currently passionate about creating systems and environments that align with spiritual practices and principles, blending structure with flow to create meaningful transformation.
Yeah.
And through your journey that you've been able to integrate spirituality into business. And I personally believe that becoming an entrepreneur and living in the business life is one of the grandest spiritual journeys that one can ever really go on.
Yeah, that's accurate, actually. It's like a testing ground, really, I think, of what you know.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a place where I've been able to take these spiritual concepts and put them into like a physical framework and be like, does this work in the real world? Like, does it work, aka does it make money? Does it function? Like, can people function off of these ideologies, I suppose?
Oh, that is so good.
Yeah.
Being able to blend and have that bridge of things that are going to function, being able to be in that flow easier, but then also being in authentic alignment with who we are as people, which is like
Yeah.
a spiritual
Yeah,
individual.
that's a whole endeavor. That's a whole lifelong endeavor. But I think like life becomes a lot more fun when you integrate it into what you're doing for your job. That's actually
Agree.
one of the big things about me is I just like really hate working. I hate working. You wouldn't know that because I'm a very motivated
Driven,
individual. I'm very driven, but like for me, work is when someone else is telling me what to do. If I'm creating something, then that's creation, and that's like a whole different story. So, yeah.
I really love that, because it's definitely one of the reasons why I started my own business because I want to be my
Yeah.
own boss. I
Yeah.
want to build my own empire. And I now work more than 40 hours a week, but that's
Yeah,
okay
but it
though,
doesn't
because
feel
I'm,
the
I'm
same.
creating. I'm not
Yeah,
working as creation. And
exactly.
it's also
Yeah.
co-creation, like what we're doing here
Yes,
today.
yes. And then you get into these magical moments where like you meet other people that are along the same lines, and then you guys create together, and then it creates this web, and it's just a really cool process
Yeah.
altogether. And I would never go back. Like I can't go back. It just like doesn't work.
100%. And especially when I hear people that are still in the muggle world and they're talking about their
Yeah.
corporate jobs and stuff, I
Yeah.
was like, man, that feels like such a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
And I will never go back to that,
Exactly.
ever.
Yeah.
The entrepreneur
Yeah.
spiritual journey
Yeah.
any day.
And I think anybody can do it too. I feel that pretty much anyone can be an entrepreneur. You just have to learn how to do it because it's a different thing than being someone who works for someone else. And even like in my business, when I train, because I train them to be contractors, it's kind of a complex thing, but they're not my employees because I don't want employees. I don't that agreement that like being an employee makes you basically just shit at what you're doing. Like you're just bad at what you're doing because you're not like because you're just there to collect the lowest amount possible that the business is willing to pay you and do the least amount of work that's like done for this, job. So it doesn't really create an environment where anybody can thrive. So I just don't want to surround myself with anybody who's sort of like in that mindset because it's just a completely different universe. Like once you step out of that universe, like you're operating on what I would consider are more like the spiritual foundational principles of the universe, which is that like you are self-sufficient as well as a part of the whole. So like in other words, you don't have to do a 9 to 5. That's a choice. That is something that was sold to us in mass that's like the only way to go. But what I've found on my journey of being an entrepreneur is that being an entrepreneur basically just means you're existing in a sovereign state and like you are not asking anyone for permission to make money. So I'm not going to ask anybody for permission to make money. I'm just going to figure out how I want to make money, you know?
Love that. And going back to like what you were saying too, I do believe that everyone has it within them to be an entrepreneur. And I think that what is one of the keys for that is purpose and passion.
Mm-hmm.
Finding what are the things that you're passionate about, finding the things that is your purpose, and then how can you act on your highest excitement that's going to be able to bring you there.
Yes.
So I want to ask you, how would you define purpose and passion? Are they separate for you or do they overlap for you?
Yeah, I think this is a really great question. I do think they're separate. So for me, they are two completely different categories in my life. They do intersect and they blend together quite nicely. And I, in fact, think that they make like a circle, almost like a yin yang, if you were to picture something.
Okay.
So for me, the similarity between the two is that they both come from like my soul or my spirit. So my purpose for me, that is very much like work related and like it's what I'm going to execute in this lifetime. So like I feel that each one of us carries what would I call it? Like a mission, right? So like a mission statement, something that you want to accomplish at a soul level in this lifetime. And a lot of times what I find is that bleeds into like what you want to give, what you want to offer to the world. So if those things, for me, they become your job. Like, what do you want to do? How do you want to act in the world? Who do you want to be? How do you want to affect the world? And then that for me is purpose. Now, passion is, like I said, it's part of like this yin yang symbol. What I find is that if I don't live my life where I get to have my passions as a part of my life goes just completely gray and it's like sad and I can't live anymore, But then I've also tried the opposite formula where I'm making money off of my passions and I don't like that. And I've experienced a lot of other people kind of tell a similar story where you can see it with artists that get super big off of their work. They basically get burned out. And so, what I've observed from my experience and from observing other people is that basically, I think whatever you're passionate about, for me, that's all in the realm of art. It doesn't matter. Art can even be just the artful, creative way that you're walking through the forest. It doesn't have to be that you paint or do something that's traditionally artistic. It's like this way that you're existing, if that makes sense, where it is you have this passion for it. Like it's this flow state that it puts you in. And so with that, I feel like it has to stay in a creative, playful realm where there's no demands on it. So like for me, if my passions start to demand things, it's not a passion anymore. Now it's a project and now it's getting into the realm of like work. So for me, I find that I want my purpose to be the thing that I'm focusing on when it comes to exchanging money. I find that that's where it's the most appropriate as far as agreements go. So my agreement is I'm going to give this, and the world's agreement is I'm going to give you this in return.
Yeah.
So, but with my passions, I'm not asking for anything in return. The doing of the passion is like what you get out of it. So for me, that's how I define those things. And I have to have both because if I have passions, they're going to take money. Like they're going to require me to pay for things because like I want to go on adventures. I want to like invest in my passions so that I can do them better or bigger, or like I want more supplies, or maybe my passions is to connect with a bunch of other people. I'm going to need money for all those things. But I don't want my money to come from like this side of the table. I want it to come from like my purpose, So this is like where I'm like fulfilling that agreement that I came here to do. I'm ready to receive abundance in response to that because it's like almost like I feel like when you do it that way, it's like that that's what that's for.
I really love too, like how you describe it as like the yin yang as well, because I would say it's very similar for me too. And it's even like one of the whole reasons why I even started this whole YouTube channel as well. I know I've already shared this story in other videos, but about 2 years ago, I came to a point where I was like acting on my highest excitement. And then because I've been doing hypnosis now for 6 years, I was like, is this really something I'm like really excited about?
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh no, does this mean I have to like, leave hypnosis and go do something else now? I was like, no, then I landed on purpose.
Yes.
This is my purpose. And so then I was like, okay, so what's the difference between purpose and passion? And so then I started to now act on my passions. So the
Yeah.
passions are there to help fuel
Yes,
the
I agree.
purpose,
I agree.
but they are
Yeah.
separate. And
Yeah.
so as you already know, I've been getting
Yeah.
back into like animal volunteer work and
Oh,
fostering
that's
doggies and stuff
amazing.
like
Yeah.
that. Because
Yes.
those are
And it
passions of
heals your
mine.
heart. It like makes the rest of your life livable. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, yeah, so that makes perfect sense. That's exactly how I see it too. It's like they're separate, but like you have to have them like together in
Yeah.
tandem, you know?
Yeah, and even like in the yin yang, there's like those little dots,
Mhm.
right? And so it's
Yes.
still
Yes, that's so
included in it.
true. You have to have a little bit of like passion in your work with purpose, and then like you also have to have purpose in the passions that you're doing. Like I do believe like you should use them to some degree, you know, but
Mhm.
not in the same way. It's just like a little bit different.
I
Yeah.
love that. So currently, like, how are you acting on your purpose and your passions in life?
That's a great question. So, like, I've tried to figure out what my purpose is, and I've thought that I knew it for a long time, and then, you know, things change, and I'm always willing to let myself change. I think that's a good thing, but it is difficult. So, I think at this point, like, the one thing I can say for sure is that part of my purpose is to basically assist in creating systems that work for everybody that's involved. So, you know, the best word that comes to mind is a holistic system. You're a system, your relationship is a system, a business is a system, a country is a system. You know, there's anything could be a system. Part of what I know that I'm like really good at and I can offer the world is that I can see where things don't align with like what I know to be true from spirit. And these are things that I've just known since I can't remember. I don't have a remembering of not knowing them. So it's like in my bones. How does this square up with what everybody else tells me the rules are? You know, because there's these rules here on this planet where they're like, these are the rules. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm pretty sure I remember there's like a other set of rules. And I think those sound better for sure, for like all of us too. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so I'm going to try and act on those and you guys can just keep that, you know? So I think right now, just sort of like forging my own path into the future. And a big part of that for me, and part of what holistic means, is like caring for all the aspects. I'm super passionate about like taking care of the people that work for me. One of the principles that I have implemented in the business is essentially equal exchange. So I'm not going to ask somebody to do a job for me and then pay them too little for that job. That to me is just nearsighted. I don't understand why anyone would make that choice because as a business owner, these people are how my business is staying afloat. If I don't have someone in their position doing that job well, my business doesn't run. So like how could I even get off on thinking that I could mistreat them? It doesn't make sense in my mind. Like again, like I feel like I have these like rules that for me are logical, but like not everybody will adhere to them because so many people are following their ego in this life and all these
Ego and greed. I mean,
yeah, and greed. And for me it's like I don't even understand greed either because like again, one of the principles like that we are all connected at the end of this, and so like what benefits you technically benefits me as well. So like for me to take something from you is to take something from myself. So I think that I just sort of live it in my everyday life and I'm building a business that sits on top of and is created by adhering to these spiritual principles, which I could list a lot of them, but we'll just kind of keep it a little bit of mystery for right now as to what they are specifically. I won't give away all my little secrets, but yeah, so
That made
yeah,
me think about, I mean, it's kind of related, but not really, because I know you're a Leo,
yeah,
and that's your sun signs,
yes,
Leo.
yes.
I was watching this video a while ago. When a Leo is taken care of, when other people are taking care of a Leo, Leo will take care of her pride.
Oh, absolutely. That is how I am.
And
Yeah.
so it's kind of
I'm a
like
mama lion.
you have your coworkers are showing up, they're doing their best.
Yeah.
And then like you're in return like taking care of them. You're taking
100%.
care of your pride.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think of myself as a leader rather than a
Leo leader.
boss. I don't really like them to call me boss. They do it jokingly, but I do it as a joke too. Really, I think that what I actually am is a leader. So for me, that's just like somebody who is doing the exact same thing or has done the same thing that they're asking of somebody else to do, you know, and then they're just creating something that everybody already wanted. And like, it's just really the way I feel about the role is like, you're just the one who is doing the stuff other people don't want to do, like going out and talking in front of other people and making big decisions and like making decisions for other people and like sticking your neck out there and designing things that are coming from thin air. And but like I'm not there to like lord over them and tell them what to do. And like I don't know, like you would think that a Leo would be, just like over demanding, making everybody pay all hail attention to me. And
I think that a self-aware and healed and healing Leo is going to be more so of like what you're describing.
Nurturing. Yeah,
The
I think they've been
Leos-
given a bad rap too, for sure. Like plus I think earlier astrology, I think we're getting better at it now, but it was pretty monotone in that like it was very much like you said the same thing about every sign
like
every
the cookie
time.
cutter.
And yeah, very cookie cutter. Yeah, like they just didn't really have a lot of creative ways of describing the signs, almost as if they didn't fully understand them up until more recently. So that's okay, we're learning all the time.
Yeah,
But
we're
yeah.
learning, we're evolving,
Yeah.
we're expanding. I know there's been a lot that's happened in astrology. But
Yeah.
I want to bring it back to like you creating systems because I know
Yeah.
that's something that you're very passionate about.
Yeah.
So you focus on creating systems and environments that are aligned with spiritual practices. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, there's so many different aspects that I could talk about with that. I think that basically, like, it is starting from the ground up, or if you're not starting from the ground up, then just like changing and rearranging the system that's in front of you to fit into like the mold of an appropriate standard. So, let's go over something just as an example. So, money is a fun topic and one that like a lot of people have like issues with, varying issues. Like I don't have enough, I have too much. There's so many different perspectives that people take on money. But for me, I wanted that to be something that I understood really well and very clearly so that I could have a clear relationship to it and with it in business so that I wasn't going to be impeded energetically by, like if I got stopped, it was going to be something, you know what I mean? It wasn't going to be just that I had a bad relationship with money. So this was quite a few years back, but I took a course from these amazing ladies in Australia. Yeah, that's been something that I've used in every business that I've ever done, and it has worked. It's worked wonders. So to give you a little glimpse, basically, I think most people think of money as this thing that they have to feel guilty about instead of just considering that it is a frequency. The frequency of money, basically the price that you set, so the actual dollar amount, is sending out a signature, like an energetic signature that's telling your client how much you think your product is worth. And so if you are energetically saying like I think my product is worth less than my competitors, then like you might think that that's a good deal for you. You might think that like you're winning because all these people are coming to your door. But then my observation on that front is that all the people who come to buy your stuff are now going to want refunds. They're going to want discounts. They don't even want to pay the low price that you set for it. So, and they're the people who like sue your business and like are just very disruptive to your business in general. I'm not saying you have to have steep prices on everything in every arena. That is not what I'm saying. But what I learned was that like, you're the only person, I'm the only person, like whatever your product is, you are the only one who knows what it's actually worth. Yeah. Because you are the one who like birthed it into existence. Even if it's a product that you purchased from another company, maybe there's something that you've added to your business like customer service that's upped the value, the actual value of your product. So for me, one of the principles that I worked really hard on was just understanding how to have this relationship and how to make the prices fit the product, not what I thought people wanted to pay me. So that was something that I had to, in my sphere of the people that were influencing me, I had to be really brave about because, not everybody would have made the choices that I made. And I think in multiple arenas that I've been in with different businesses, I've been around other people who are essentially afraid to have that conversation. They're afraid to have the conversation about why their product is worth what they're asking. So I had to learn how to be like, this is exactly A, B, C, D, E, and F, why it's worth what I've said that it's worth. And now if you don't want to pay it, that's completely fine. So another concept that I feel like is foundational for me is non-compete. So there's no such thing as competition in my mind.
I love that.
There's only authentic or not authentic representations of whatever the product is. So my focus is just on being authentic in my giving of my product. So the product itself for me is meant to be authentic. So even the way that I train the coaches that I have is that I want them to be authentic in themselves while they're executing my program. So it's like, it's a lot to ask of someone, but it is doable. Like it's completely a thing where you can just be your full self, but also be respectful and do things in a timely manner. It's just being a professional. So it was money first. And then the second one was non-compete, no competition. Yeah. I don't believe in competition. I don't believe that that exists. I just believe that we have to make something authentic and then people will be drawn to it. So, and that's where I'm not really afraid to, set my prices where I think they're worth, because my goal is to create a product that is good. Like it's actually good. You come in and you buy the thing and it's not like a plastic toothbrush that breaks in 2 days. It's something that you can use for a literal lifetime. And so I know that that's worth something and I have no issue selling it in that way. And you can even hear in my voice that there's no breaks. Like there's no nervousness or like, ooh, I don't think it's actually worth that. And it's because on the opposite end of that, so it's not only asking people to pay me something, but it's also making my product valuable. So like it really matters to me that I'm going to actually put in all of the work so that when they show up, that price point that they pay, $500, whatever it's going to be, they walk away being like, that was a good deal. Like that was a good deal, that was worth $500, whatever the exchange was, like, I'm happy with it. And so that's where like, if there's other businesses that are working like in my area that are, let's say, similar, because there's the Croc Center, there's Safe Splash as well, I think. And in my mind, like that we are not even in the same arena because I've created something that's so different than what they're doing that like it's not competition. And in fact, when people don't like me and my business and the way that I've set it up, I'm just like, honestly, Safe Splash is over there and the Croc Center's over here. And like, because you don't like me, you'll probably like them. You're probably going to have preference of the way they're doing things because the way I'm doing things, you don't like. And
There's
maybe
be more alignment, and that's okay.
Exactly. And I'm happy about that. Like I'm legitimately thankful. I mean, we've had customers where I'm just like, man, I'm so thankful to you that you recognized before I had to say anything that I'm not the right person for you, And so it's even like a graceful like loss of customers too. I've had situations where there's no such thing as competition. There's also no such thing as loss, really. There's just an exchange of energy. So if all these people are leaving my business because they're no longer in alignment with me, then I have to look at myself and be like, am I changing? Is something that I'm like, am I changing my energy signature? And therefore all these people no longer want to work with me. That is honestly, in my mind, the good thing, because now I'm like, oh shit, okay. So my principle is that things only travel upward. You experience these rises and falls through your emotional understanding of what's happening. But to me, energetically and in a frequency sense, we only travel upwards. So our consciousness only expands.
There was this image that I saw. It's like we are actually traveling upwards. Like
yeah,
spiral,
I do like that.
right?
Yeah. And then those like, those travels around the edge can get like a little confusing and like scary, but
so you can play Mario Kart.
Yeah.
Like,
which I love, honestly. I love driving around corners. I love the momentum shifting. But yeah, so where was I with that one?
Sorry.
It's okay. I totally lost it though. I was on a
no
track.
Yep.
Yes.
We can only go upwards.
Oh, right. I believe that we can only travel in an upward fashion or an expanding fashion, if you will, like adding, not subtracting, that our beingness, the essence of our beingness, can never be subtracted from. It can only be added to. Kind of like matter cannot be destroyed. It can only be changed and recycled into something else, kind of along those same lines. For me, if something drastic happens in my business and everyone else would look at it like, oh, you're failing, something really bad happened, part of me is like, yeah, that's scary, I'm terrified. Then the other part of me is like, okay, but wait a second. According to these laws that we're aware of, you're expanding. So when you expand, you dump energy. Like things leave you. That's just normal. It's like the process of taking in and then letting it go. It's really straightforward, And yet as humans, we get so lost in the sauce and we forget about these basic things. If you just step outside into nature, you can see all of the world adhering to these principles. And yet we are just like off in la la land doing what some other person told us was appropriate. And I just think that's crazy. like actually crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm just like out on a mission to be like, that's silly and we don't have to do that. And like it does work outside of their system. In fact, there's more energy outside of that system, like an abundant amount of energy. In fact, like a limitless amount. And then when you are inside the system of like the system that doesn't work, and we all know what I'm talking about, there's a very limited amount of energy. And like you really only can have so much, and the rich have most of it. And like everybody else gets like these tiny little pieces, and that's just like super unfair, and everybody knows that. But is it unfair, or are you choosing to participate in something that sucks and you don't have to do?
Yeah.
But you just didn't know that because like those principles were like hidden in plain sight, you know?
Yeah, and that's why I think it's really important that you're talking about these things, because I think a lot of people just don't know. A lot of people are unaware that there are other
True.
ways of being and
Yes.
doing. And even the people that do have the dreams to do and be different, they haven't always done the inside work to
Yes.
be able to let go of
Yes.
feelings of inadequacy, to be able to let go of the feelings of lack of self-worth.
Yeah.
And as they return back to themselves, they're going to be like, I'm scared.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do it anyways because this is important to me.
Exactly.
So
And
I
I
totally
think
get that.
that's where for me, like when I see people and I see them going through what you're talking about exactly, where it's like they want something and they say they want it so bad, then why isn't it happening? I love puzzles. So like my brain, in my brain, everything's a puzzle. You're a puzzle. Like everything I experience is a puzzle that can be moved around. Like energy basically can be moved around, right? So I can understand where the dysfunction is if I study it hard enough. And what I've observed with people is that they actually don't they don't recognize that they're not really in alignment with what they say they're in alignment with. So for me, it all comes down to being honest with yourself. Like a huge part of my healing journey, but a big part of it for me has just been being honest. Like I think that since I popped out of the womb, people have been like, I mean, a lot of people have in my past interpreted it as mean because I was like unleashed with it, but it's always saved me. It's saved my life that I've just been an honest person. And that's been my dedication, has to be honest to myself. And so I think in that process, I could look at myself when I came up against a wall and I was like, I want this thing, but it's not happening. Why is it not happening? You know, like, why am I in this position? I could be honest with myself and be like, oh, it's because I don't actually want that. That was like somebody else's dream that was kind of suggested to me, but like, this is what I want. I think a lot of it for most people and why most people are stuck is that this is going to sound really mean, but I think it comes down to something as simple as laziness.
Sometimes people could be very complacent.
Yeah, I mean that in like you're comfortable in what you're doing, and whatever you think you want is not more important to you than your comfort. One of the things that I decided early on in my life was that I didn't care about being comfortable. Like I was willing to go through fire and rain and storm and like whatever it took. Like that thing that I wanted was my goal and that was what I was going to get, you know? And it wasn't the thing, it was like me being able to achieve what I wanted in my life. Like that was my goal, you know? So it really, the goal could change and it wouldn't matter because I was still executing what I actually wanted, which was to be authentic. And that just takes like, it takes being willing to be uncomfortable. And that's pretty much it. You know, it's pretty simple. And it's interesting too, because I was listening to something recently and they were talking about how that state of being uncomfortable is the state in which you are learning things. So if you are not able to be uncomfortable, you are not able to learn, period. You do not learn in a state of comfortable. And that's something else that I think has really helped me along the way is just like, I was not always humble, but at some point I trashed my ego and I was just like, I don't care what I don't know. And in fact, I'm going to embrace the fact that I don't know most things. And if I make space in my mind all of the time for the fact that I don't know a lot of things will reveal themselves to me. But it's like when you're trying to tell someone something and they're like, oh yeah, I know that. Oh yeah, I already knew that. I totally knew that because they're blocking you. They're like, no, I already knew what you were saying. Like
the cup is already full.
Yeah.
You can't help fill up a cup if it's already full.
Exactly.
You know, versus if we can approach experiences and people and conversation as a student.
Yes.
Even if we already have knowledge of the topic, but being able to approach conversation as a student, as an empty cup, It might be a lot of confirmation, which is really cool. But then
Yeah.
if we can listen and really learn from other people,
Yes.
we're going to be able to hear it in a different way, connect another dot, get another piece of that puzzle.
Yes. Yeah. You'll get real confirmation, which is confirmation from life itself, instead of just from someone like affirming you, being like, oh, yeah, you are great. But what's better than that is life opening a door because you like leaned into an experience, and made a connection, and then something happened for you. Like, I think that's like the deeper level of getting a compliment, is like life opening doors for you. And that's where I think for me, like, humility comes into play. Like, I don't want people to like me. I just want to be doing the right thing. You know what I mean? I just want to do what the right thing is for me, and not for everybody necessarily. But I believe that what's right for me will benefit a lot of people, because that's integrated into my goal, is like treating others the way that I probably would have always wanted to be treated. If I could have been born into an ideal world, like, I'm trying to create that. I'm trying to make that come to life.
I believe too that when we can be authentic and we can be ourselves, your people are going to see that. They're going to be attracted to that.
Yeah.
But not only that, though, we're all students and teachers.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
And then we also
Yeah.
help inspire other people as well
Yes.
too.
Yes.
And I mean, that's a nice thing about being an entrepreneur, because it's like, I believe if I could do it, so can you.
Yes, because we didn't come from anything special.
No.
Like, neither of us had anything special to get us to where we're at. We just kind of were bumbling our way through it. Like, we got this. We got this.
A little bit.
Just charging through. And I think that's just how it goes. I think that's where embracing like the humility that I'm talking about is so powerful, because like, if you just want to be good at something, if you just want to be right, like, it's not going to work. You got to be willing to fail, like, a lot, because failure is part of learning, and being uncomfortable, being in that uncomfortable space. So they all sort of, like, these things sort of bleed together.
Yeah. I love what you said too, though, because you're absolutely right. Like, change and insight happens at the brink of our feeling of uncomfortable.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's funny that our brain is wired to do the same thing that it did yesterday, because yesterday was safety, it was protection, we survived. And so we really have to push ourselves to that level of discomfort. And this is how we begin to create the new neural pathways.
Yes. It's like we thrive in the place we don't want to be, in a way, because like, being uncomfortable and failing are two things that I just like didn't want to do for the longest time. And it was really, I just have noticed a marked difference in my life and the way that it moves, because sometimes your life feels like you're hitting a bunch of doors and nothing's really happening. And then sometimes it feels like things move easily. Since the more I can embrace failure and the more I can embrace being uncomfortable, the more my life moves around. And then when I get stuck, it's when I start being like, oh, I don't want to be uncomfortable. I hate this. And then like, also, I failed all these times and that actually means something bad, instead of being like, no, that failure is a great thing. Like, what'd you learn? Like, what did you learn from that? Like, what are we not going to do next time?
So we were like, way before we hit record, like when we were hanging out in my session room and everything, we're talking about like words, right?
Yes.
And so a really fun word I like to play around with is mistake, because it's just a missed take.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And then you could take the information you've learned and then redo another take.
Yeah.
So there is no
that's
failure.
so good. Yeah.
It's just a mistake.
I love that. That's so good. I'm going to use that now. I love that.
I have like a bunch of like little fun words I've been able to collect.
Wordplay is so fun. So good. I love wordplay. But yeah, mistake. Yeah, like, you just get to go do the take again. Like, let's do it again. And that's such a good way to think of it. Because for me, I've started to think about failure that exact same way, where it's just like, that was a try. We learned from that try. And now we're just going to take that information and put it into the next like chapter of whatever we're doing. And so technically you didn't lose anything. You only gained something. And you gain more when you lose, when you fail. Like, you gain more knowledge by a long shot. Because like, when you're being successful and when you're winning, half the time you don't know why. You're like, what am I doing correctly here? Like, I know I'm doing it and it's great and it feels great, but like, what exactly did I do? Whereas failure is that thing where it's like, up to that point, it's teaching you all the things not to do, and then you're like, now when you're there, you're like, oh, I know not to do that and not to do that. And that's how I figured this out. And
then we can then take something that we don't prefer and then make it into something that we do prefer, right? I like being able to look at that. Even like when my last client before you came in, she was sharing with me some like one of her last relationships, and he was, very mentally abusive to her and everything. And so we were talking about like identifying like what are green flags, yellow flags, and
Mm.
red flags.
Mm.
And she can now take those like really kind of shitty experiences and alchemize it.
Yes,
And so
yes.
now she can take that to what she does
Yeah.
prefer, which is the exact opposite of what he
Exactly.
was like in a
Exactly.
relationship.
Yes, that's so true. That is so helpful because, like, you can't think of it like, oh, this person, the fact that I was with that bad person, or even the fact that I made that bad choice, whatever, that has no reflection on you. It's just like, how are we gonna like adjust now so that we can not do that ever again?
Yeah.
So that we can never experience that ever again.
And
It's
now
like
it's good.
me growing up with a narcissistic father. Like, I now am so good at spotting like other narcissistic individuals, and it's been so helpful because you wouldn't think that it had anything to do with business, but they're the type of people that take from you and don't give anything in return. And so, like, you really got to watch out for them in all arenas. And I mean, I have had to deal with them in a business sense as well, where it's like, okay, so this is like really common. I feel like everybody has some degree of narcissism in them. And so it's just a matter of like, how bad is it? Because, like, essentially, the farther down they go, the less you can work with them. So yeah, long story short, I feel like all the experiences that you have end up being something that's valuable to you later on, like all of them, no matter how small and no matter how much you think that it's not going to end up being something, it is. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool how life stacks on top of itself like that.
And when you can have the mindset for that too.
That's true. That's a growth mindset.
Have the mindset and into
Yep.
an empowerment
Yep.
mentality as well too.
Yep.
And so then by moving from victim to empowered, then it's going to be easier to break those cycles.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's also going to be like a more aligned state,
Yes.
higher energy in
Yes.
ways than victim, right?
Yes.
So how does the law of one like relate in regards to purpose and passion in business and such?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, the law of one is essentially the principle that we all stem from the same source. If you want to think of it in a picture form, you could think of something like the Big Bang, but underneath that would be a consciousness, right? Like a God or a creator. I don't really care what the word you use is. It's just, for me, it's a understanding of how things came to be in this reality that we exist now. If we all came from the same source point, it means a lot of things. Most of the time, when humans are being normal humans, they're thinking about, speaking about, and acting on opposite laws. So I don't think there's a law called the law of lack, but let's call it the law of separation. Okay, we've got these two opposing forces. We've got the force that's separating us from everything, and then we've got the force that's connecting us to everything. So the law of one is essentially the principles, the ideologies, and then the actions that spring from that connect us all, and would mean that underneath what I can see and sense and know with my physical body, that we are one. So like let me give you just like a little example. If I'm having a bad day and I don't really know you, but I see you in passing at the grocery store, and I just get this feeling that like I should talk to you. For me, that is part of, it's not really the law of one, but it's like, it's part of that principle that like you are me and I am you. So if I do speak to you about, if I follow my intuition and I speak to you, something happens for you and for me. So I get to have this process of like connecting with you. I don't know how it's going to affect you. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe something in my story goes and has a profound effect for you in your life. I've had this specific thing happen to me before. So then let me give you an opposing mindset that's a more common one that people hold, which is the law of separation. In other words, you're not necessarily particularly important, and neither am I. We're all just humans. We're living here. Everything kind of just happens. It is what it is, homie. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not a big deal. We're all separatists. Like, it's very separate in here. So that mindset would rob us both of an opportunity for something to happen. So there's this principle understanding of like, if I am you and you are me, then what is right for me is right for you. And so you can apply that to literally anything. But let's say with business, for instance, I've done this in so many different aspects of the business, but probably an easy one to understand is that what I try to teach my coaches how to do and how I built my program was that I essentially put myself in the shoes of the child. I'm like, I'm a little kid. I don't know how to swim. What do I need? And honestly, something absolutely brilliant was born from that, because like if you look, I don't want to get too nerdy about swimming on you, but if you look at a program like what the Red Cross does, which is part of the YMCA swim team.
Okay.
So if you were to understand, if you were to be nerdy about swimming, what you would see is that it's actually really difficult to learn at an entry level. So in other words, they don't have a very good grasp of the transition between not knowing how to swim and knowing how to swim. What they really know how to do is swim. So like they're super good at like intermediate, advanced level techniques. And so what they do is they try to teach these advanced level techniques to babies, or they just work with the babies in the water and they don't really do anything. So what I learned how to do was take babies and make it baby language, learning how to swim. And I don't even make them swim. I also took elements from other programs. So I learned from like a collective of other swim programs. There's also something called ISR, which is like absolutely brilliant and genius. It's where they basically take infants and really, really young babies, probably no older than 5, but a lot of their clientele would be actual babies. And they basically just teach them how to not die. So that's to fall in, roll over, and float, which is way more complicated than you'd think, because all you have to do is put your face under the water and then inhale and it's game over. So that takes like a millisecond. There's no time there. So like the training that it takes to get a baby who can't understand your words how to do things like that is pretty intense. But
I can imagine.
yeah, so by like taking influence from other systems around me that were working in its own way, but I didn't want to do the exact same thing, and then putting my client, in other words myself, into the shoes of a baby or a young child, I was able to sort of like pull from that, what can I do to like first blend these things together and then also like make it approachable for them. Because another part of our program that people are really like jazzed about is that like it feels like family. It feels like, it's not 100% because, we are professionals, but like we're real people that you get to work
You're
with.
being authentic.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a corporation. And even if I did become bigger, I would never let it feel like staunch and dry like that, because that's just like so boring for everybody involved.
True, yeah.
Like, why would we even do that? But yeah, so with that one, like essentially like the underlying principle there, like that helped me bring that into existence was like fully and wholly being willing to consider someone else's needs as though they were my own. I think that's a skill that you can learn if you believe that we are all one. So something that's really made it easy for me to, no, I'm not going to say easy, but that's helped me be good at understanding other people is being able to put myself in their shoes. So like to really strip away my identity as Rowan and then think like, what would Cyndal be experiencing right now based off what I know from her and based off like what I can sense. And, because obviously I can't know everything, but it makes such a huge difference in any type of relationship, because when we're just only selfishly considering ourselves and what we think and what we know and where we've come from, it just makes it so much harder to like let someone else like it makes it like if I don't put in the effort to understand you, to put myself in your shoes, then I'm essentially asking you to travel like 100% of the distance and translate yourself to the point where like it's going to be exhausting for you. Where I think a more fun experience for us both to have is for me to be curious about who you are, what matters to you, like what your perspective is, and then I'm meeting you halfway, and then what you say doesn't have to travel so far to get to me. Does that make sense? And I feel like the customers feel that as well, like in a business sense. So it's, you'll hear other people talk about like the strategy of putting yourself in your customer's shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like for me, it just goes, I think, a little deeper than like just me having the intention of trying to get them to buy something. It's also like, really, what do they need? Like, actually, even if it was something I couldn't provide, like, I want to know it. It needs to be logged in my mind because it's important to me. They're actually important to me. So I think, like, for me, it's just the subtle things are what makes the difference there. Because it's like, if you can't fully hear what I'm saying, it might just sound like I'm saying the same thing as a lot of other business coaches who are just saying like, put yourself in the shoes of your customer, and like, but it's just, for me, it's like there's another level there. There's a spiritual aspect to it where it's like you really honor them, and then you're able to create something from that like they really, really want and they really like, and they'll honor you for making it in whatever way you ask, like by following your rules and paying your prices and being respectful of you. And then it's like this really beautiful experience that you guys get to have instead of this like work, It's like you play all the time, like you're just playing, and then you're making money from it, and it's honestly so cool. Yeah.
So the law of one sounds very similar to like one of the laws that I'm familiar with. The one is in the all is in the one.
Probably the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm loosely referring to something that I'm aware of, but I don't know if that's the technical name for it.
Yeah.
It's just the principles of like all being one.
So that like one of the principles, because I was learning that when I was down in Costa Rica working with a very beautiful medicine healer and everything, and so he was going over the 5 laws of creation. So that's one of the laws of creation. One is in the all is in the one, and it's basically talking about what you're talking about, how we're all divine mirrors for each other. Mm-hmm. And this makes me think about this one time. It was in the very beginning of COVID, actually. We're all like quarantined into our homes and everything, and I'm like taking Monty for a walk. And there was this houseless guy, and he was like sitting in the parking lot, and I just like kept getting this ping, like I need to go talk to him. I need to go talk to him. About, right? So I'm like, okay, Monty, let's go. So I go over and like I asked him, I was like, hey, do you need anything? Like, is everything okay? He's like, I have a question for you. Okay, what's your question? He was like, he said something along the lines like, how can we make the world a better place?
Damn, that's a moment.
Off guard. And so my response is pretty much like what you're saying. I believe that when I can see myself in you and you can see yourself in me, that we're going to have more compassion and more understanding towards each other. And when we can have more compassion and understanding of each other, then we're going to have just more kindness and just more compassion in the world. And so therefore going to make the world like a better place.
Yes.
And so that was just a really interesting interaction.
That's so cool. I believe there's little moments where there's glitches in the matrix, and I feel like that's one of those where you're like, did that actually happen?
He got kind of weird for a second, but after that I was like, okay, anyways, glad you're good, bye. So
no, for real, it's like it glitches for a moment, and then it's like, by the way, Cyndal, what do you think about this? And you're not really having a conversation with that houseless guy, you're having a conversation with the universe itself, you know?
Yeah,
I feel like those things are real.
I mean, that has happened to me so many different times throughout my life. I'll come home and tell Joe, she's like, how does this happen to you? I'm like,
I don't know. I'll get back to you when I know the answer to that.
It's like, yeah, I mean, it usually happens. Like when I'm taking Monty for a walk, there was like another time I was taking him for a walk. This one woman had like headphones on. She was like, you're like, I was like, what? I take my headphones off. She's like, well, you're like one of the chosen ones. I'm like, what are you talking about? So, like, I've just had like a lot of experiences.
That's cool.
Like that, like a church parking lot. I'm like, okay,
damn, that's something in your energy signature for sure. Because like that doesn't happen to me. So that's something in your energy signature. That's interesting.
But, you know,
that's
interesting. I take it. So
somebody's trying to tell you something.
It's wild. I mean, again, like I can think of like numerous times where that's just like unique situations like that happen, which I'm grateful for. It's just an interesting thing because I'm just like in my own mind, like doing my own thing,
just living your life.
Like, someone's like, oh, Charlie Brown, hi.
Yeah, it's not what you expected. You're like, okay.
Oh, real quick before I ask the next question too, like with the law of one is in the all's within in the one. It's kind of the same thing as like as within, so without, so above, so within, so it's same concept.
Yeah. So I love that. And for me, my brain starts like do shapes when you say things like that. Because
like
bubbles, spheres. Oh. So sacred geometry. So we have like the original form was a circle, and then it goes to 2, and then it goes to 3, and then I don't know what's after that. Yes. So anyways, what that for me represents, and it's like so deep, but there's the individual, which is what you're experiencing. And then there's the all, which is what's around you. And that would be like the complete flower. But the irony is that like what houses the flower? Another circle. So like every system is a system within itself. And that's the flowers. It's like multiples of self, right? So like I'm you, you're me. I can understand myself through understanding you. You can understand yourself through understanding me, and vice versa. I can understand myself through listening to you, through like observing others, through also observing myself. There's like so many, it's fractals also, the way I see it, like almost like light bouncing around in a kind of chasm in a way. So like it's all coming from the same center point, but as it expands outward, that's where all the differentiation comes in and all of the experiences that can feel separate from being a part of a whole.
That's wild. I mean, I love that. And that's like looking at the bigger picture. And then we can look at the bigger picture and even, again, have compassion that people all the way across the world that I've never even met before, they're also part of the one. They're also family as well, too. And, you know, again, being able to extend them compassion, and when they can do the same thing for themselves and for others, this comes back to us. So I agree, it's the whole divine mirror thing.
Absolutely. And all parts are working together too. They're all connected. So that's like string theory. I think that they all just beautifully go together if you sort of look at them like they're a puzzle instead of like separate pieces, you know, like they're all kind of telling the same story. You're just sort of not looking at the full map. You know, I feel like that's a lot of like religion and like these little tiny sects of belief. Like just zoom out a little bit. It'll make more sense. It does make a lot more sense if you just zoom out.
This is why it's like having conversations with other people.
Yes.
Because as we have conversations with other people, you know, we're going to be getting different perspectives and different insights and different levels of awareness is going to be able to help
and let
us.
Yourself listen to them. Let yourself be uncomfortable when they say something you don't like, you know? Why do you think that? Where does that come from? That's so different than what I think, you know? It doesn't have to be bad. It could be cool. It could be like, I don't know, I've started to think of it like it's a mystery. Why are they so different from me? Am I like, who's the weird one here? It's just, you get to figure out whose perspectives are coming from where and why, and then you learn more about yourself too. As you go through that process, even if you don't agree with what they say, I think it's such a superpower to just be able to listen. Because like I don't have to agree with someone just because I'm listening, and my listening does not mean I agree. It just means I'm observing you, you know? So a lot of people take listening for agreement, but that's not anything you can do anything about.
We can be more intentful listeners and like truly listen instead of being like, you know, thinking about what you're going to say next. We can really learn more about each other, learn more about ourselves, and then with that, like being able to use that as fuel to continue acting on a purpose and our heart's excitement and our passions and things, and being able to have more play and more excitement in life.
And according to the law of one, if I listen, I will be expanding myself, right? So because you are me, you're telling me something I need to know. So like a bad listener for me is somebody who's defending their position. So they don't want to expand. They don't want to grow. They don't want to get any bigger or be any different. What they want is to stay where they are. And that's why they block what you're saying. You know what I mean? They literally like with their words and with their actions, they literally like, yeah. Like you're trying to say things like, no, you know, but like, in the principle of like acting on like the law of one, I don't have to fight you for the space in this room because like it's not 50-50, it's 100 and 100, and then together it's like 200 or whatever, you know what I mean? But it's exponential, it's not subtractive. Like I talked about before, we don't ever subtract, so I can't subtract from you. Like even if I tried to subtract from you, what would happen? I would look like an asshole. And then you would actually honestly maybe benefit from that, you know, because you'd be looking like a little sweet angel and I would just be over here looking like a fool. So I just think that's really fascinating too, that the place that it comes from for what I think a lot of people who are bad listeners is that they want to convince you that it's because they're already big enough. It's actually that they're scared of getting bigger, you know, but like someone who wants to learn, who wants to soak things in, that's a person who wants to expand.
Curiosity is a gift.
It really is.
Something that I like to teach a lot of my clients is like, how can we get curious? How can we get curious when things trigger us instead of like thought looping about it? And like when we can approach things with more curiosity, like, oh, that's interesting that I'm feeling kind of uncomfortable. Well, why is this? Well, why is that? And so speaking of why, so anyone out there who is like wanting to become like an entrepreneur, or maybe they are an entrepreneur, and they want to integrate some of these spiritual practices, what advice, what suggestions would you have for one of those types of individuals?
Great question. There's honestly a lot of things you can do, but I would say like my path, the path that I would choose and the path that I would recommend to other people is the harder path. So how I go about things is I would rather, and I actually do think that it shortens the amount of time it takes to reach the destination. The difficulty is always in the beginning because that's in the transition period, the learning period where you're uncomfortable. For me, authenticity is like obviously something that we've brought up again and again during this conversation. And it is something that you have to have in order for me to do business the way I would do it. So like if you want to follow somebody else's advice where like they're not talking about spiritual business, that's a whole nother conversation. And you can be successful in that way. But what I find is that you get to the successful part and you're like, man, I'm empty. This sucks. So like for me, I want to like be filling my cup by doing what I'm doing in my life. So in order to even know what would fill my cup, I have to be authentic. I have to be honest with myself. So like, maybe just something as simple, just like so simple as like give yourself, like if you want something physical that you can like tangibly take home and use, my suggestion would be to clear all distractions for as much time as you can possibly afford. So if you can afford yourself a week, please do that. If you're serious and you want your life to change, like please clear your schedule for a week. Go somewhere where no one can talk to you. You have no cell phone service. Like you are literally in the middle of nowhere and you're the only one there. Maybe you have like a dog that you want to bring with, but don't bring another person. Don't bring anybody that can distract you. Don't let yourself be influenced by anybody else for, like I said, as long as you can afford. And then sit down with yourself and focus in your intention that this whole thing that you're doing, even if it's just 12 hours, like even if it's 3 hours, give yourself as much time as you possibly have. Like, let's say you're a mom, to all the moms out there who have to work and take care of their kids and do all that crazy stuff because they're superheroes. Like, give yourself time to sit down and be like, what do I want to do? Like, what is the thing that is coming from inside of me? And that part requires fortitude. You have to listen because there's going to be some like screaming from like your past traumas that like it's not possible. You have to just like let that be there. Like, okay, so you're mad that I'm talking to myself about this, but like, please give me a minute.
Thank you for sharing. Give me a second.
I guess what I'm trying to say is like, you don't have to be a guru. You don't have to be healed from all of your traumas to be able to move forward. All you have to do is like let them exist. When you are trying to be authentic, one of the things that is going to stop you if you're not careful is your emotions, because a lot of people don't know how to deal with emotions. Emotions suck for most people. So my biggest piece of advice with emotions is like literally all you have to do is witness it. We make it way harder than it should be. So when you're having all these emotions about the shit that's going to come up, that's going to be trying to get in your way, because this is how it works. It's a step process. You sit down, you give yourself some time, and then you're like, I want to create that. And then maybe along the process or maybe after, but somewhere in there, you're going to have resistance come up. And when that resistance comes up, in order to still be able to make it to this point, you can't get stopped by all these things. So like you have to have a plan. Like, what are you going to do? My plan is just let it exist. Like those two things. All right, you exist here, you exist here. That's my goal. You're not like stopping me from moving forward. Yes, I have like traumas from my past. Yes, I have things that are difficult for me. Does that mean that I'm not capable of moving? Absolutely not. But I guess I'm just saying, like, don't wait. Like so many people wait. They're like, oh, I'm going to be perfect someday. And on that day, I'm going to start the thing. And I'm like, you'll never be perfect. You'll never be ready. Like anything that I've ever done that has been awesome, I was like, I'm not ready for this. I am so scared. Like I'm shaking in my boots. But I tell my swim kids all the time, they're like, I'm scared. They tell me this all the time. And honestly, I just absolutely live for this moment because I'm like, okay, I accept your fear. Like that is so normal. Like you could die in this water. I don't blame you for being scared.
It would be kind of weird if you weren't
Yeah,
scared.
honestly, I get worried about you because you're not scared and you do technically need to be afraid to understand the environment you're in, right? So that fear is an appropriate response, but it's not going to stop us. Like, because guess what? I'm going to teach you how to be brave today, because being brave means you're going to do it anyways. You're going to learn that you are more than that fear you're feeling. That fear is just a feeling, and you can walk right over it towards this dive or this jump into the water. And with that same pep talk, like 3-year-olds will jump off of a diving board by themselves after 2 weeks of training. Like I just met them and they all of a sudden are now at this point where they're like, and they couldn't go underwater before. So like this happens quick sometimes. So anyways, yeah, I feel like it's a process. There's so many things that are involved, but getting to the point where you can be your authentic self is the most important, in my opinion, in the way that I would do things in a spiritual business sense. And it's not just going to apply to business, it's going to apply to every aspect of your life. So strap in, because it's not just your business, it's like your family members, your friends, like where you live, what you do with your time, how you eat. It's all of it. Being authentic is a commitment. It's a commitment to yourself, to like who you actually are, not who you think you are. So there's also those moments where like just let your emotions exist, because those emotions are coming from your trauma, which were implanted by your parents who had trauma from their parents. That's not you. Like, you are not your traumas. Like, you, how you responded to those things, that's who you are. I heard this quote one time that was just like, chef's kiss. It was, the most boring thing about you is the things that make you sad and the traumas of your life. The most incredible thing about you is what you've done with all of that, and like how you've responded to all of that. Yeah, exactly. Because like, think about it. When we talk to other people, what do? We talk to them about our traumas. We talk to them about our sad past. Because let's be honest, we all have mommy issues. We all have daddy issues. We all have like different variations of the same things. They're not new. They're not different. Like, in a very respectful sense, like, our traumas are boring. They're boring. Like, it's the most boring thing about us, because we all have them. We all have the same ones. And if not exactly the same, it's a slightly different variation, but it's really close. Then what we don't do is think about the way that we got up from being thrown down. Like, that's what makes you who you are. Like, what did you do? How did you get out of that? Like, because you lived through it, you're here, like, but we don't think about that part of ourselves, So I feel like that's a really powerful little tidbit. Like, we are not the sadness that we're carrying. We are not those things. You have to figure out what you are otherwise. There's almost like two selves. There's like the fake self and there's the real self. And when you're moving into being authentic, you're going to take that fake self with you until it's ready to die. Like, it's like, even for me, mine's not fully dead, like, I'm determined to be an authentic person, but like, it is such a process, and like, I've gone through a thing recently where I like even deepened my understanding of how far it goes, and how deeply entrenched it can be into our subconscious, and therefore like the part of us we don't know about. So that's where like part of authenticity for me is accepting the need to constantly let go. Like, if it doesn't work anymore, just let it go. Because like, if you have an eternal self, an authentic, like a self that you can find, like, it exists somewhere. You might not be able to touch it with your physical body ever, but it exists somewhere. You don't have to hold it together. Does that make sense? Like, you don't have to do the work of like remembering all the things you've ever learned. It gets integrated into that being that is you. And so we hold so tightly onto these like ideas of who we are. And really all it's doing is slowing us down. It's literally just slowing our trajectory through the universe, because like, our soul has a plan, and it's got so many different like avenues that we could take. So like, if your soul has a plan for you to be successful in a particular arena, there's probably 10,000 different ways that could manifest. But like, if you're not in alignment with yourself, then you're not going to manifest the particular situations that you'll need in order to move into that part of yourself. And so I think that's where the letting go principle works, is where you're just like, that didn't work, fuck it, like, let's go have a good time and just like enjoy my life. Like, let's say I flew all the way to Barcelona for a job deal and it didn't work out, and I'm just like, I could be angry, right? I could be like, God, I failed. Or I could just be like, God, I'm in Barcelona, this is so cool, and then I'd go enjoy my life. And guess what would happen? I would meet the person that I was in Barcelona to meet. Part of the law of one is understanding that like, you're literally not by yourself out here. Like, we think that we're out here just like alone in this world. We feel that we're alone. That's because of the law of separation having been literally encoded into our bodies as part of like the training to be human. So like, we're born and society trains things into us. That's one of them, is that we're separate from like the fabric of the world around us, but that's not true. So if you're acting in alignment, what's happening is that means that there's structures and systems already set up, already waiting for you to receive them and to step into the room and become a part of them. But like, if you are believing in the law of separation, you will walk this close, but you'll walk past it, because the universe's gravity is such, like, it's so much that like you have to really work to be out of alignment. It's funny because like I studied the way stress affects the human body when I was in high school, and I did a report on it. What I found was that we didn't have any research on how happiness affected the body, but we had a lot of research on how stress affected the body. But what I learned was that like it shuts down your body from being able to function, literally function. So like it's just how it works. Like when you choose that path, you're choosing lack. Like you're creating it, and you can see that in like the body and all of it. And so, but when you're choosing to be in alignment, all of the things around you will line up as well. And it takes a lot more energy to be in that stressed state. So what's funny that I don't think we realize as humans is that we're working like 10 times harder to exist as like these weird fake humans than to be our authentic selves. So there's this like squeeze period where when you are learning to be authentic, you squeeze through almost like a hole that's too small for you. Yeah. And then you come out the other side something completely different, almost like you went through a black hole. But that's because all of the laws that you've been operating on are the laws of separation. And so then if you move into learning the law of one, which will lead you into being authentic. It's all connected. It's all part of the same thing. Essentially, we're talking about two realities here. We're talking about two separate realities. I'm talking about one that was constructed and one that is authentic. It's just a part of everything, all that we are. When you're in this arena, like in the law of separation and the state of separation, your soul is feeding you energy so that you can exist, right? You then take that energy and you do whatever you're going to do with it while you're alive. It takes you probably 100 times, 10,000 times as much energy to sustain the law of separation. And it takes pretty much no energy to sustain the law of one, because the law of one is actually how things work when we are not doing anything. So if you were just to go out into the universe and do literally nothing, you would be cared for in some way. Like the universe itself would step in and care for you in some way. But like the law of separation says that we must constantly be proving ourselves and working in order to survive and to exist. And that's just not true. So, but the principle there is that you have to do all this hard stuff in order to get anywhere. And so, but the irony is that the exact opposite is what is actually true. So again, with the reference of like Barcelona, like you were working really hard to like get a client, and you're in corporate America, let's say you work for some type of corporate business, and then you fly to Barcelona, and like normally work trips aren't even fun. You know, you just like go there, have meetings, then you go home. You don't actually get to enjoy your vacation or the fact that you're traveling the world. That's very much law of separation. Now, let's say something big happens, like there's a snowball happening like in his life. He can feel it, but he can't put words to it. Like he's unhappy in his job, he's unhappy in his marriage. Like there's just so much going on. And so his momentum is actually manifesting change in his life. So then something happens, let's say like doesn't make the deal, and it just breaks him and he quits. And then he goes and he starts like, you know, maybe spending money like crazy, like going around and doing some crazy stuff, having some adventures, right? And all of a sudden he literally is now a different person, because like he's just made a choice where he's like, this hurt me, this is breaking my back. Like if I'm a like a mule or whatever and I'm carrying shit, like you put too much on me. Like this does not work. It is physically, like my body, my mind, my spirit, all of me is telling me this does not work. And then what happens when I let go of that? I feel better. I feel free. But then you look back and you're like, okay, because these laws are the only laws I know, I'm going to go back to them. I'm going to be like, okay, now I have to get a job to continue surviving. I have to like be a part of the thing that I hate to keep surviving. But what's crazy, and what I mean by like you come this close, is in that moment where his life broke apart and he was in Barcelona, wherever he was as close as he'll ever be to an opportunity to change his life even further and do the thing where you like turn your purpose into like how you pull in wealth or how you pull in abundance. I think that when you are fulfilling your purpose, you are acting in accordance with the law of one, which is to say, I am a part of all that is. Therefore, I have my specific role, I have my specific space in the world, and all of the world around me is actually lined up to receive me the way that I would like to be, the way that I'd like to give myself. So when you're giving yourself inauthentically, you're literally just trying to fit yourself into all these other puzzle pieces, and none of them fit, and you never will fit because you're the wrong shape. Being inauthentic makes you the wrong shape, literally, if you're a puzzle. And then when you can shape yourself into this authentic shape that you actually are, then guess what? There's somewhere where you fit.
Anything that's meant for us is not going to be heavy. Anything that's meant for us is not going to weigh us down. And so that's a way to be able to discern that, right? Absolutely. And so it's like letting go of belief systems, letting go of the stories that we tell ourselves, even letting go of people in our life. So like being able to let go. And as we do that, we can become like hopefully more and more free and more lighter. And then as we go on that journey, we can then be open to notice and see the synchronicities.
Yes.
If we are open, like kind of like
you'll turn and be like, oh.
Yeah, or like as you're saying that, it kind of made me think about, this guy like in Barcelona, he kind of like bumped shoulders with someone.
And that was the dude who would have they would have made a business together, or something like that. Yes, exactly. You get what I'm saying. Exactly.
So being able to bump shoulders, be like, oh hey, and then sparking up a conversation instead of just being so in your own mind,
or you're stressed, you're in your head. Exactly. No, 100%.
I totally get you. And I think that's really important. We are going to go ahead and begin to wrap up. So like, where are people going to be able to find you on the socials and stuff like that?
Well, if you're interested in swim lessons, we have caysdancingwaters.com, which is our website. We're over in Post Falls, Idaho. So
that's funny. I made a swim pun earlier. Just keep swimming.
Just keep swimming. No, I love it. I wish we'd done more. Honestly, like I could go off on swimming puns because like I do them all the time because it's literally like I'm teaching children like the laws of the universe when I'm teaching them how to swim. It's crazy. But anyways, so like the swimming school and that whole arena, that's caysdancingwaters.com. If you want to find me personally, just Rowan Endres on Facebook, ENDRES. And then I do have a TikTok where you can watch me. Yeah, you can watch me fulfill my passions, which is just, something we didn't really talk about. It's completely different, but that's my creative pursuits and stuff. So that's princess.alchemist. We'll probably post them on there.
Yeah. All the things out
Yeah. That's pretty much it for right now. I do actually have a YouTube channel, but she's not ready yet. She's not ready. She's still in her baby stages. So we're starting here on our friend's channel. I've made like 1 or 2 videos on my own. This is going to be the best one for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty cool too because you can take this video, you can like link it to yours
that's true.
And everything. And be like,
they'll be like, it looks like she's good at talking.
So, question for everyone out there. How are you going to apply the law of one in your life? I think it's a really fascinating topic. Yeah. So how is the law of one going to show up in your life? How are you going to integrate this insight? And, I would say just give it a try for a week.
Yeah.
Just try it out.
See if it works.
Week,
Yeah. You don't have to do what I'm doing because I'm on my own journey. I'm on like a completely different path where I'm like ready to go. Yeah. But like, if you're just like, what is this? Does it actually work? Is it real? Just look it up, figure out what it means, and then try it in your real life somewhere where you're like, is this going to work? Or somewhere where you're like, doesn't matter if it works or doesn't.
An easy way of being able to even start this is like going to the grocery store and like when you get that ping, like you just go up and just like give them a compliment and just see kind of where it goes. I think that's going to be like an easy way of being able to do it. But if anyone else has any ideas or suggestions, drop it down below.
Love to hear it.
I appreciate that. And then I'm also going to go ahead and put down all of your deets down below as well too. So it's going to be there. So thank you everyone for tuning in today. Take care. Breathe deeply.
Thank you so much. Bye, you guys. Thank you.